The Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Techtown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. Techtown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey, the Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency, but they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families, and they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization, doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Foley. Glad to have you with us on this Friday. We are, of course, streaming this live on Facebook. It will be available as a podcast a little bit later on today. And look for the video on Deadline Detroit and YouTube, all that good stuff when we finish putting the polishing touches on it. We get rid of that intro stuff that you just witnessed. It's much cleaner. It's a lot better. Real quick before we begin, thanks to our sponsors, Techtown and Samaritas, for their support for this program. We couldn't do it without them, and we do appreciate that very, very much. Here with me once again this week is the ever-reliable Nancy Derringer of Deadline Detroit. We appreciate you being here once again.
Nice way of saying I don't have anything better to do on Fridays, but yeah.
What's better than this?
Yeah,
Come on now.
It really is a nice way to kind of cap off the week.
Well, and we have a fresh face on the program, somebody that I've actually known for quite a while. Matt Abel is here. He, of course, is the founder of Cannabis Council. He is, of course, you are the executive director of Normal here in Michigan.
Yes.
Still?
Yes, I am.
Still? Okay, very good.
Right.
Cannabis Council is, of course, your firm. You've been around for a long time, and you and I have been discussing marijuana issues for quite a bit. Now, Matt originally is here because Monday's podcast is going to be a conversation he and I are going to have about what is happening here in Michigan when it comes to recreational pot, legal pot, and some of the challenges that these communities are facing around that issue as they sort of try to figure out what the heck's going on. The rest of us are growing impatient, meanwhile, as these cities sort of figure out their political problems. But that's going to be Monday's podcast, so stick around for that. But I roped him into the week that was because it's just fun.
Fresh faces.
We need fresh faces.
Fresh voices.
And so where do we begin today? Why don't we begin where we usually do, and that would be with just the nuttiness that is President Trump.
You know, we have moved beyond nuttiness, though. I mean, this last story yesterday that broke it's really alarming. I mean, it is incredibly alarming. The Russians, if you haven't heard, the Russians are meddling again. Congress was briefed on this, and or the House Intelligence Committee. And the president's response was to fire the director of national intelligence and then, of course, appoint a lunatic.
Yes, this would be Joseph McGuire, who, of course, is the director of national intelligence. He had the audacity to actually let the Democrats know that the Russians were trying to interfere in the election and that President Trump apparently got upset because the Democrats found out because they might try to weaponize it against him.
Yeah, how dare they?
Well, right. and everybody's, even, the Trump sycophants over there saying, well, no, nobody's been tougher on Russia than Donald Trump, to which I'm replying, please now.
I can't. I just can't.
But the fact that he fired this guy for actually telling Congress about an ongoing threat to our democracy, which is their responsibility to brief them on this, and he replaces him with this guy, Richard Grinnell, who, if you look at his Twitter account, you see basically he is just a guy that is a loyalist and a cheerleader for Donald Trump. He has no national security qualifications whatsoever.
Oh, there's no way this guy is going to get clearance, but I don't know. Maybe
he doesn't have to
he's
because
an ambassador.
He's acting.
Right. He's acting.
And if you're acting, you don't have to get Senate confirmation.
Okay.
So the fact that President Trump...
But can he get a security clearance, though? That's my question. Can we trust the director of national intelligence with our intelligence?
That's a legitimate question. I'm not sure. But, this is just another example of a guy he flies off the handle, immediately fires the guy because he told the Democrats about this, and he's worried about politics more than he's worried about the security of the nation and the integrity of our elections. And Matt, I mean, this is an ongoing theme here. If there's anybody that could maybe start smoking pot just to chill out a little bit, it's Donald Trump.
Well, probably, right. Just kill the messenger, Right. There are only so many messengers, though. Eventually, I think you run out of
There's a pile of messengers. It's like bring out your dead. It's kind of, That's what's going on right now. And it's a continuous thing. And it's like, I don't know what I expect. I don't know if I expect anything different at this point.
Well, the damn shame is that there's a good chance that he'll get reelected. Like half the people out, more than half, are brain dead, apparently. It's really frustrating if you have any respect for the Constitution.
Well, and that's the whole problem. I mean, is this...
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't think you can say at this point, sorry to interrupt, that the President of the United States is not some kind of Russian asset. You know, maybe not directly. It's not like the Americans. You know, he's not meeting with a handler and all this other stuff. But for all intents and purposes, he is a de facto Russian asset.
Do you think Melania is his handler?
What's interesting, though, is that his director of national...
what's going on.
His intelligence director said, hey, Russia's trying to interfere with the election, and they're trying to interfere on behalf of Donald Trump. They want him to win.
Right.
So if I'm Donald Trump, instead of getting angry that the Democrats might use this against me, I might be thinking to myself, why are they so interested in me staying on as president?
Because you're an asset.
What am I doing wrong here that makes them think that I'm the guy that's going to be more favorable to their needs?
You're suggesting he has a level of self-reflection and self-knowledge that he simply doesn't have. So,
well,
you know.
That might be true. But,
and as long as we have a marijuana lawyer here, and you've already brought up the idea that he needs to start smoking weed and just chill out a little bit.
That's right. Get off Twitter.
I mean, you know, this is...
Watch The Simpsons or something.
You know, at a certain kind of gossip column level, there have been rumors about his Adderall use. And, of course, we all know Sniffy McAdderall. You know, we've seen him in all of his speeches. You know, he does the sniffing thing. And, you know, there's that guy on The Apprentice who claimed that he had seen him snort Adderall, crush it and snort it like a good old cokehead. So I don't know. You know, maybe I think a little you know, cannabis tea might do him some good, but on the other hand, it might send him, you know, off in another direction.
Could get even more paranoid. That could be interesting.
Indicas, please.
Now, interestingly enough, though, President Trump, after he got rid of McGuire and appoints this guy Grinnell on an interim basis, says he's actually thinking about Representative Doug Collins from Georgia. And Doug Collins, if you were watching any of the impeachment hearings, was one of the loudest supporters of President Trump throughout that whole process. He was the guy that was yelling all the time.
I thought that was Jim Jordan was yelling.
No, Jim Jordan was yelling too, but Doug Collins was too. He's the guy with the glasses.
Oh,
the other guy with glasses. Not the ones on the bridge of the nose like Jim Jordan was wearing.
Okay.
But
the guy
Doug
who kept his jacket on?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
So Doug Collins, President Trump said he was considering Doug Collins to be the permanent director of national intelligence. Collins said, I don't want that.
He'd have to give up his seat.
Yes, he probably would. And, you know...
And where's his district in Georgia? Is he in Atlanta or somewhere else?
I don't know exactly where he is in Georgia, just as Republican from Georgia, but, you know...
Atlanta and then not Atlanta.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. One of the not Georgia. Atlanta, you know, possibly north of Cobb County kind of a thing.
Right.
But so he just said he didn't want to do it. And this is one of Trump's biggest loyalists in Congress. Even people who are loyal to the guy and have basically sold their souls to keep him in office are not willing to. I'm not going to die on that sword because I will never get back into the seat if I do that.
Right. And they know what that involves. I mean, sooner or later, he's going to ask something of you that you simply cannot do for whatever reason. And either because it offends your morality, or it's actually flat out illegal, and you won't do it, and then he'll fire you. So, you know, and then you've given up your seat in Congress and your reputation, and you don't have a paycheck. So
now, before we get to the Democrats, because I definitely want to get to the debate that happened in Nevada a little bit later on, but one of the things that happened yesterday, got to stay on the president for a little while. He was at a rally in Colorado, I believe, yesterday. And he was talking about all kinds of different things, ripping on Fox News, saying they have loser shows and they have winner shows. Like Hannity, of course, is the winner show. And they have a bunch of loser shows that they're not good to us anymore, is what he's saying about Fox News.
What is the loser show on Fox? Did he name any?
Not
that I really know the Fox
by name,
lineup.
But he said, hey, how's Shep doing? He did mention Shepard Smith.
Shepard Smith, right.
But the other thing that he did last night was really weird. Of course, Parasite wins Best Picture. It's a South Korean film with subtitles. And he came back. He's like, can you believe it? A film from South Korea wins the Oscar. You know, they're already giving us problems with trade, and now they get this. How come we can't just go back to movies like Gone with the Wind?
Although I don't think he even said movies like. He said, why can't we have Gone with the Wind? That was it. So a movie that's...
I'm not sure anybody would make Gone with the Wind in the way they used to.
No, I don't
made
think
it
so. But
before.
that's 1939.
Yes.
One thing I did pick up at his victory celebration after the Senate acquittal a couple of Fridays ago, he says he was introducing guys, and I was listening to this on the radio on my drive-in. It sounded like Vegas. It sounded like Dean Martin talking about the Rat Pack, who are all standing
Dean Martin
on
had the
stage with
excuse
him.
of being hammered out of his mind.
Exactly. But at one point, he was talking about some lawyer, and he said something like, you know how he loves to say Central Casting. He's right out of Central Casting. He said something about if you wanted to remake Perry Mason. He mentions Perry Mason, and I was thinking, like, how old do you have to be to even know who Perry Mason is?
It's on Me TV every day, kid.
Well, but even given that's kind of, for a long time after Perry Mason went off the air, that was kind of shorthand for kind of every lawyer. Still, imagine being like 37 and hearing some reference to Perry Mason, and anyway, just a weird thing. So yeah,
my favorite part about this though is that he's complaining that a foreign film won the Oscar for Best Picture, as if you couldn't make a good film outside of the United States.
Right, yeah.
Which is just, first of all, incredibly insulting. But my favorite part is the distributor of the film, the company issued a statement last night after he said it, and they said, well, yeah, it's 2 hours worth of reading. He can't do that. It's all in subtitles. So I thought that was pretty good. That was a pretty good response to that. All right, let's move on to the Democrats, because you mentioned that he might win again. Matt, you said that it's possible that Donald Trump could win again. And that's exactly the point that Michael Bloomberg was trying to make yesterday in the aftermath. He actually came out and goes, anybody watch that debate last night? Because he has been roundly panned for his performance in that debate.
Yeah.
But he said, the only winner of that debate last night was Donald Trump. And I've heard that from a number of people, because the Democrats are fighting with each other right now, which they do when it's the primary cycle. But I'm thinking to myself, I didn't see it that way. I saw the Democrats actually arguing for the party.
Yeah.
Saying, no, if we have Bernie Sanders, who's not in the party on one end, and we have Michael Bloomberg, who became a Democrat for convenience sake, just to run in this on the other end, that are getting all the attention right now. I saw Democrats actually saying, hold on a second. Maybe the Democrats need to define who we are, and they're going to duke it out for a little while. But I don't think they did any favors to Donald Trump the other day.
I think that's healthy. And the interesting thing to me was, right out of the gate, the first question to Bloomberg was, will you support whoever is the Democratic nominee coming out of this process? And he said no. What the hell?
Well, and that's kind of what did they ask Trump that in 2016? He said the same thing. Like, I'm not sure about that.
No.
So yeah, and that's kind of a.
So is that the bar now? We're comparing
test.
people to Trump?
No. But I mean, I think that's you bring up a good point. It's like, how, if you're running as a Democrat, I mean, part of the process is we have this winnowing down in the primary, and then we settle on a single nominee. How can you call yourself a Democrat if you're not going to vote for the Democrat that's nominated? I mean, who's he going to vote for?
Well, but
Tulsi Gabbard is a third partier? I don't know.
It seems that so much of the Democratic electorate right now is so motivated by fear of Donald Trump. They're like, well, we just got to find somebody who can beat Trump. To which I like to respond, if you don't think you have enough ammunition to take this guy down, there is something wrong with you.
Right.
Every single day he does something insane. He does something stupid. He does something that it's something that impacts our allies. It screws up our trade. Just because the stock market is humming along doesn't mean that most of us have seen any real benefit. I mean, yeah, maybe some of my retirement accounts have gone up, but I'm not out there buying stock every day.
No.
So this is not something that's like, ooh, my world is perfect because the stock market is good. Yeah, it's great for he and his buddies.
Yeah.
But most people, if they actually take a serious look at where they are right now,
can't
say that he made their life perceptibly better.
You remember the State of the Union? It was just one
lie
after another. I mean, it was, this is the greatest economy in the history of our country, which he says all the time. That unemployment is low and blah, and all of this is, some of it, not all of it, but a fair amount of it is kind of true, right?
Yeah,
true. But I mean, ask a person who's working 2 or 3 jobs with no benefits if they feel that they're, that they're fully employed. It's just not the case anymore. I mean, it's a different kind of economy. We are moving into a different kind of place. And for people like me, you're right. I mean, the stock market, you said humming along. It's like a race car that's had like nitrous oxide plugged into it. I mean, it's going full bore, but there's that sense that it can't keep going like this forever. And there may be a big correction, in which case there are a lot of people who are probably thinking, people in the middle who are worried about somebody like Bernie Sanders, because they're thinking, is that the correction? And what am I going to do when I need to retire? So I don't, it's a, I lay awake at night thinking about this stuff.
But that debate the other night, I mean, they did go after each other. They were bickering with each other. They were arguing policy. I thought Elizabeth Warren had a great night. She went after Bloomberg right away. That was a great line about horse-faced, what did he call them?
Horse-faced lesbians.
Horse-faced lesbians. And I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about Bloomberg.
Great band name, the Horse-faced Lesbians.
That's it. Somebody's going to have that. Look at the Metro Times, in the band listings there pretty soon. But I thought she did a good job and showed that she can come out swinging.
Yeah.
And I swear, she could run intellectual circles around Donald Trump if she had the opportunity. And I think any of those people up there could.
There's never going to be another debate with Donald Trump in it. He simply can't handle it.
Well, he's already trying to find a way not to do it.
Right,
Remember,
exactly.
He hinted that, the debate people might not be fair. They might be biased against me.
Right, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So,
but,
yeah.
I mean, it seems to me, Matt, that anybody could find plenty of things to beat this guy up with over the course of the next several months. Once they get it sorted out as to who it's going to be, who can beat Donald Trump? Anybody should be able to beat Donald Trump.
Right.
I would think so.
I mean, my dog, who's now deceased, should be able to beat Donald Trump.
I can't see that Trump has gained voters. I don't know anybody who didn't vote for him who said, wow, I didn't vote for him, but I really like what he's doing, so now I'm going to vote for him. I think more the reverse is true, that there are people who voted for him who regretted it. So to me, it's a question of Democratic turnout and independent turnout. If the people turn out, because the only reason Hillary lost was she was so distasteful to so many people that they stayed home and didn't vote.
Yes, I think he's absolutely right. It's all about turnout. There's nobody in the middle. This is one reason that these campaign events are driving me insane, because I feel like, what is all this being done for? Who is this being done for? It's like voters who have their minds made up. It's like, let's have the election a week from Tuesday.
Well, here's a question I have. What did Rod Blagojevich do to get a commutation of his sentence?
Nothing. Well, when he sent his wife out on Fox to suck up to the president.
Well, so Kwame Kilpatrick had a faint glimmer of hope, I guess, that maybe something would happen for him along those lines. It has yet to happen. Roger Stone getting a potential pardon waived his way, depending on what happens with his request for a retrial.
Mm-hmm. He'll get one. Yeah.
You think he will?
Oh, I think he will.
Did you like the 40 months for Roger Stone? Was that adequate?
I kind of defer to Lengel on this, because he covered federal justice for so long, and he said 4 years. And so 4 years would have been 48 months. He got 40.
So 3.5 years almost.
Better than nothing.
Yeah.
At least he got some time there.
Well, I think the judge in this case, after hearing from the president as often as she did,
a model of restraint.
Bill Barr apparently, did the right thing.
Yeah, I think she did too.
Asserted her independence. She she made some comments to the prosecutors the other day saying, "What's the recommendation today?"
Yeah.
Did you hear her say that the other day?
They egged her on and provoked her every which way, and she kept her cool and she did her job. I mean, the women in these jobs are really covering themselves with glory these days.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. I think it's great. All right, so let's go to this one. I'm seeing a lot of stories. We had this on Deadline Detroit. I've seen it in a couple of other places. These warnings about the fact that you can get absentee ballots, any reason absentee ballots now here in Michigan, which is a great step forward. It's a big deal.
Finally.
But now they're saying, well, this is going to cause all kinds of problems. You don't want this because we're not going to be able to count the votes as quickly. I'm sorry. Don't try to make me afraid of improvements in our voting system.
Right. Well, that is coming from the county clerks who
I'm sorry. They know how to do this.
They're the same ballots. They just feed them into the machine.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly. I mean, but they can't open them until election day.
Till the polls close.
I
right?
think they're allowed to open them once the voting starts, but they can't count them until. So they have to like take them out of the envelopes, and it seems as though it's a problem that could be solved with like hiring additional staff, you know, and just making sure everybody is properly trained and doing it that way. But the Republicans hated, what was it, Proposal 3? Was that?
Yeah.
The Republicans hated Proposal 3, and they're going to keep hating it, and they're going to hate it until they figure out a way to try to reverse it or hamstring it somehow. They don't like. It's just one of their tactics. They don't like the idea of people being able to walk in and do no reason absentee. So, stand in line.
Well, so
I'll be doing it.
We in the leisure class have time to vote. The working class, we
You're
don't want to
right.
give them time to vote.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, if I'm an hour and a half late to work because I stood in line to vote, I just say, well, I was voting, and nobody's ever going to say anything. You're self-employed, same deal. But yeah, you're right. He's right.
I've missed voting before because I was out of town. I ended up having
and
a court
you didn't
date
even apply
somewhere.
for it on time, yeah.
Right, because I didn't know a judge would schedule something 2 weeks out, and there's not time to apply for an absentee ballot. So eventually, before I was 60, now I could use no reason absentee.
Right?
Well, thanks so much. Checks in the mail.
Yeah.
So, but before, I used to just have to anticipate. I expect that I'll be out of town, and had to kind of fudge that a little bit. Now, nobody has to fudge it. If you want to vote
but
at your leisure, you can do that.
Here's the thing, though. Mike Shirkey, who, of course, is the Senate Majority Leader here, a Republican in Michigan, says that it's a dangerous precedent to allow them to actually count those ballots early. Because, so much screaming about voter fraud and all this kind of stuff. Here's what he said. He said, if I had to choose between early voting, early counting versus late reporting, I'll take late reporting all day long. Allowing local clerks to open the return envelopes containing absentee ballots before Election Day is, quote, the nose of the camel underneath the tent.
Well, all right.
I'm
to
sorry.
be sure, you're right. I mean,
you can still lock the stuff away.
You're also speaking a little bit as a journalist. I mean, is it a terrible thing if we don't find out who won something by Wednesday noon? I mean, it certainly
hasn't Iowa destroyed all our lives?
It did. It certainly takes the drama and the fun out of election night, okay? Because you aren't going to have those acceptance speeches happening in time for the 11 o'clock news. You're not going to have the pizza, the parties.
I've been a journalist in Detroit. We've never had it in time for the 11 o'clock news. Not once. Not once.
Well, we don't, but we usually know like approximately who the winner is. It's going to be an election. It's going to be an election day after brunch event rather than the day of. So I don't know. I mean, it's as long as everything gets counted, I'm okay with it. But, I think I've heard from some clerks are saying that demand for absentee ballots is up 70%. It's going to be a big deal. And I live in a community where they can never seem to get the damn election done correctly and promptly. It's the worst of the gross points, but this is the town we have chosen. So go ahead.
All right, let's move on to something that we've been hinting at around the edges a little bit, and I want to spend some time talking about this. But there's a lawsuit that a couple of dispensaries here in Detroit, and I believe Inkster is another town where one of them that are bringing suit against the state, suggesting that they should be allowed to open their recreational dispensaries, despite the fact that the city of Detroit has not passed a resolution allowing that to happen yet. There's a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that Matt and I will get into for Monday's show, but we can talk a bit about it now as well. They've got an interesting argument here. The city did not have a regulation in place until like the 12th of the month.
Right.
Their applications came in on the 1st of the month, so that time was sort of a no man's land where the state statute should have been enough.
Right. The state statute says if the municipality has not opted out, that you can apply.
And they hadn't opted out at that point, so they had applied, so they're saying that their application should be there. They should be allowed to operate. And I think there's quite a few dispensaries that are doing this, but this delay has been creating all kinds of problems for a number of these business operators.
Absolutely. And, I mean, that's on top of the delay of the city of Detroit.
It's been a year
generally for the recreational marijuana stores. It's a huge problem. And as a lawyer for over 30 years, I can tell you this is one of those cases where the Court of Appeals may end up saying, well, that's what it says, but that's not what it means. And I hate that kind of stuff where they interpret it contrary to the plain language. It seemed clear at the time. What's concerning to me or interesting is that the department, LARA, the Licensing and Regulatory Agency, had been, along with the Michigan Municipal League and others, running around telling communities, you have to opt out, you have to opt out, because if you don't, they will just go ahead and open and get licensed in that location. Now it seems that LARA is taking the opposite position when they scared all these municipalities into opting out, and now they're saying, well, even if you didn't opt out in time, unless you have an affirmative ordinance, we're not going to license it. So in that case, why bother opting out at all in the first place?
Go ahead, Nancy.
I was just going to say, do you think this is maybe, a transitory period that we're going through here as dispensaries become increasingly sophisticated and communities maybe become a little less afraid of them? I mean, I know that there's a lot of people who hate the idea of these big green leaves and the guys walking in and out with the dreadlocks and people getting high in the parking lot. But I mean, Michael and I
put it back behind closed doors where it always was.
Michael and I have been talking about this one on Jefferson that that I pass on my way home from work on the bus called, I think it's Common Citizen. The place looks like a Gap.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got these. There's no green. There's no leaves. There's no strip lights that look like they came out of a BP gas station. It's like these black and white panels over the windows of these like attractive people just enjoying their lives. It's like an ad for cigarettes in 1980.
Alive with pleasure.
Exactly. And so I just, in fact, I didn't know what it was at first. I just kept seeing Common Citizen. And I think as these places get a little slicker, maybe communities will back off a little bit.
But what's interesting to me is that, you knew all the suburbs, especially the ones that border the city of Detroit, were going to opt out, right? Yeah. Because we can't have that in our community. It can be right on the other side of the street.
Yeah, that's fine.
8 Mile or on the other side of Alta
Mac.
or something like that, or Mac. And that's exactly what everybody was waiting for. And then when Detroit has got this delay, all these people are going,
where's my weed?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like, okay, well, then, get it ready. But Grosse Pointe, you can't even have a freaking McDonald's in Grosse Pointe, let alone, a dispensary. But it seems to me that everybody's waiting on Detroit to do what Detroit has always done, sort of been the place where the strip clubs were on the border. And so you drove into the city if you wanted to buy whatever. All the bad things you could do, you had to get your vices in the city limits. And now that they're not doing it, the suburbs are like, hey. And, part of
what
me is
happened
still,
to our vices?
Yeah, and part of me is saying, good for you, Detroit. Stick it to them a little bit because they've been sticking it to you and dumping their garbage in your city for as long as we can remember.
Right.
So part of me is saying, good on you, Detroit.
Yeah.
And for some of the reasons they're delaying, I don't necessarily have an issue with either if they're talking about employment opportunities for people.
True. I think that's all great, that we need more of these facilities to go to Detroit residents, to people who've historically been disadvantaged by the drug war. And the city council is just now starting to think about that, or maybe they've been thinking about it for a year, but they really haven't been talking about it very much. It seems like they're clueless as to how to do this.
Well, they have to be careful, don't they? You can't just put a set-asides out there, can you?
Well, you certainly can't do a racial set-aside, and Councilman Tate actually said out loud, we're trying to have more black-owned businesses. Well, racial preferences are outlawed by the Michigan Constitution, so you can't do that. But
so you have to find a way to put it into law that actually makes that happen without it saying that?
Yes.
Look, there's a great point though that a guy made. I interviewed last week, a guy named George Etheridge, who's running for a state house, and he said, "Look, anybody that's involved in this business, the only reason that they're allowed to be licensed to be in this business is because they just haven't been caught yet." He's like, you get caught and you have any sort of marijuana conviction, you are barred from working in this profession. But he's like, anybody that's working in this profession now, growing plants, has some experience here.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Anyway. We have some clients who have no experience growing, I'll say.
I'm sure.
People who come in with money and think that they're going to grow the best cannabis in Michigan.
I'm guessing it's probably not that easy.
I know 10 of the top 5 growers,
Well, see, this is Matt Abel, by the way. Anybody who wants to know.
He gives great parties.
Do you see sort of a light at the end of the tunnel on this stuff? Some of these log jams getting cleared up? Because, again, communities that opt out are losing out on potential revenue that they all need.
Absolutely. The city of Detroit, and I live here in Detroit, my business is here, and the city is losing revenue because we don't have recreational stores, where River Rouge had the foresight to go ahead, and people are driving just south of the border here into Rouge to go to the recreational stores. But part of the problem is that the city put a cap on medical marijuana provisioning centers, the stores, a cap of 75. And those are, very few of them are owned by Detroiters. And so when they allow those stores to transition to recreational stores, you still won't have Detroit ownership in that, because it's the same group of 75 or so owners. Whereas under the recreational law, someone who doesn't have a medical marijuana facility first only can apply for a 100-plant grow license or the new 150-plant micro business license, which I think is going to be a great opportunity in Detroit, or the consumption lounges and temporary events. Well, the city hasn't approved any ordinance, so there are no consumption lounges, there are no temporary events yet, and the city doesn't have an ordinance for the 100-plant grow and the 150-plant micro businesses. And some of us are talking about trying to put together a proposed ordinance that would allow Detroiters, people who meet the social equity requirement, which means you've lived in this city for 5 years, to then be able to apply for the micro business, which is growing and selling at the same location. And then when the requirement sunsets of having to have a medical license first, which will be toward the end of 2021, we allow those businesses to transition to retail stores, and then also open it up for other Detroiters to own retail stores. It is a bit of a puzzle with moving pieces.
Yeah,
so
clearly.
Never a dull moment.
Clearly. Well, we're running out of time, and I want to, like I said, Matt Abel and I are going to get a little more in-depth about this stuff. It'll be on Monday's podcast. But, all right, so I definitely want to talk about this. A new segment that we were talking about doing. Schmuck of the week.
Oh,
Planko's not here. He loves that word, schmuck of the week. And I found
Yiddish word.
yeah.
I found a nominee for the schmuck of the week, and this is an institution as opposed to just a person, an individual. It is this wonderful Fashion Institute of Technology, which is Tell
us why.
a design outfit. They had a runway show the other day.
That one. Oh, God, yes.
Where they had the models and they handed out prosthetic ears, big red plastic lips, and fuzzy eyebrows and all this kind of stuff.
Kind of like Mr. Potato Head. They
Mr.
all look
Potato
like Mr.
Head
Potato
features.
Head.
But,
Yeah.
they were all, a couple of the models just said, this is the most racist thing I've ever seen. And they refused to go out there. Other models did wear it.
Right.
But the fact that, they didn't look at this and go, maybe it's a bad idea for us to put big red lips on people and have plastic lips and have them walk out on stage wearing this kind of stuff. If one of our models says, that seems pretty racist to me, maybe they should go, you know what? You skip the prosthetic ears and lips.
The point of a fashion show is to sell clothes, okay? And there's a part to be played by the model's hair and makeup, because you're selling a mood, and particularly for a runway show where the clothes are nothing like you're going to actually find in the stores, or most of them. That just strikes me as a really bad idea, because nobody's going to be looking at the dress. They're going to be looking at the model and the ridiculous plastic lips.
Well, and they do look stupid. And here's my favorite thing. A couple of the models, who rejected it, went out there, and the people who were running the show said, oh, you can be uncomfortable for 45 seconds.
I think I'd tell him to stuff it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what she did. And she went out to wear the dress, but she didn't wear the other stuff. And
Really?
a bunch of the other models did. But, of course, the condemnation was quick. Now the company's like, well, we didn't really think it through. Like, yes, because what part of blackface works in this day and age?
There are a lot of people in the fashion business who are just plain dumb.
Well, when I was reading this article in the Washington Post about this, I'd forgotten about how many other faux pas we've had in the fashion industry and how much stupid stuff these people do on a regular basis. My God.
They're not really plugged in. I mean, there's occasionally, I mean, I don't want
talk
to say
about a bubble.
They're all dumb. Yeah, but because there are some very smart people in fashion, but there are an awful lot who just, if you look fabulous, they don't think about anything else. So
yes,
there you go.
H&M This is one of the things I learned about H&M a couple of years ago. Got busted for having a black kid in a sweatshirt that said "coolest monkey in the jungle" on the
there was
sweatshirt.
that, right.
Then you also had Prada, which had the little black figurines they were selling with the blackface features on them. This is just last year.
Right.
You had Gucci that had a black turtleneck with the red lips. When you pulled it over, it looked like you were wearing blackface.
Oh, you looked like a sock monkey.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
they
sock
had that
monkey,
one.
yeah.
And then you also had, what else did you have? Burberry.
Yeah.
Of course, British Burberry.
Burberry.
They got in trouble. They had a sweatshirt that had the drawstrings. Instead of drawstrings, they had nooses on them. So,
oh, cool.
it's just really smart. This is like, who is in charge of this stuff? I'm sorry. But anyway, that's my schmuck of the week. The Fashion Institute of Technology gets it. And I'm tagging you for next week's.
Okay, I have to come up with a schmuck next week.
Schmuck of the week.
Oh,
it's going to be on Nancy.
It's going to be fun.
And we may have agreement
so
on this.
Many
We can take a
opinions.
vote. We can have a meeting beforehand and figure out who it's going to be.
Okay.
But we can nominate, maybe vote at the end.
And you can't give it to Donald Trump every week.
No.
He's got a lifetime achievement award.
Yeah, exactly. It's
the weekly Donald Trump Schmuck of the Week award. It's named for him. So I think that we're going to do it that way. All right, we got to wrap it up. Matt Abel, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Nancy Derringer, as always.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. Michael Lucido engineered the broadcast today. We do appreciate that. All of you who watched and commented, thank you. Ishmael, good to hear from you. I'm sure we'll be talking soon. And also, Samaritas and Techtown, thank you. We appreciate your help as well. And that's about it. Nancy, take us out.
I'm not giving Lengel's thing. I'm just going to say, if you've never been to Matt's chill room in his office, you really need to visit.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's
I've
very
heard,
cool.
Well, Matt's office, it is the old W4 Studios.
That's right.
So over there on Jefferson, and it's a cool building.
We keep waiting for a bag of cocaine to fall out of the ceiling. But, that hasn't happened.
That'll bring you a different type of legal problem than you're normally dealing with. But thank you. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. We will see you soon, I hope. The Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Techtown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. Techtown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey, the Craig Foley Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.